And it wasn't until my last relationship where someone was, "You're in an abusive relationship." No, I'm not. I was still denying it. And meanwhile, the person was controlling everything about my own lifestyle. Once I escaped that situation, I'm doing very, big picture here. Once I escaped that situation and spoke to a therapist and really dug in deep about what I was going through, she's like, "You are absolutely in an abusive relationship. Do not discount it."
Hi, I'm Lennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. Now, as we age, we sometimes have a tendency to go back and reflect on all the different things that have happened in our lives. And one of the things we reflect on, of course, are the different relationships we've been through. And sometimes they were good, sometimes they were bad. And there are a certain percentage of us that have gone through very difficult relationships. And some of us are still in those relationships. And when I say difficult, let me change that. Abusive relationships. Sometimes they're emotionally abusive, financially abusive, and physically abusive. And that's why I'm so excited to introduce to you today Tiffiny Newton, who has basically transformed her life from pain to purpose. She is a relationship survivor, having survived not one, but two abusive relationships. And she's here today to share her story and also hopefully some advice and some tips that can help you to break through whatever kind of abusive situation that you might be in. Tiffany, welcome to the Vibe Living Podcast. It's wonderful to have you here today.
So nice to be here. Thank you so much for getting the chance to connect with you and your audience.
Thank you. And we had a couple of false starts, so I'm just really, really glad that we're here and that we
Made it.
yay, celebration time. So tell me a little bit about you and how you became so passionate about providing support to women who are trying to get past an abusive situation.
I never thought I'd be in this position ever. My parents were married 48 years before my mom passed away. You see long-standing relationships and there are struggles, right? I mean, no, everyone is their own person and you're going to have conflicts with other people. And so you see that growing up. You see arguments, but there's a difference between an argument and a manipulation or gaslighting or, verbally abusive behavior. And I never really understood or discerned any of that early on because I never picked up on any of that growing up. And it wasn't until my last relationship where someone was, "You're in an abusive relationship." No, I'm not. I was still denying it. And meanwhile, the person was controlling everything about my own lifestyle. Once I escaped that situation, I'm doing very, big picture here. Once I escaped that situation and spoke to a therapist and really dug in deep about what I was going through, she's like, "You are absolutely in an abusive relationship. Do not discount it. Do not minimize it. You need to address this, write down all the red flags." She really walked me through like going back and evaluating the situation I was in to understand it in a new light.
Yes. It's interesting because I think a lot of women are in denial about it because there seems to be some kind of shame associated with it that they would allow themselves to be in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Why is it that women feel shame?
I think because we're taught not even as littles growing up into young adults and into full-on adulthood, we're taught not to disrupt the boat. I didn't really find my voice until I was in college. My parents, their relationship and me kind of finding my own way. I was always the new kid in school. I was a military brat, an army brat. So your main focus was just finding new friends, right? It wasn't about speaking out on certain things. It was about, how do I fit into this new school system? This whole changeover of new kids coming in. Who am I going to be friends with this year? There were other things I was worried about than my own opinions, right? And I didn't really find what those opinions were early on. So I think that if you feel like you need to speak out, you almost feel guilty because you're trying to protect the other person, right? I don't want to disrupt their job. I don't want to disrupt their life. So I'm going to hold it in, and it becomes very disruptive to your own mental health and your own psyche. And a lot of times that can manifest itself in physical disabilities, physical sicknesses, in really, really bad ways.
Then you mentioned that when you went through and spoke finally with your therapist, she said you are definitely in an abusive relationship. And it was interesting because people would think, well, of course, don't you know that you're in an abusive relationship? But that's not always necessarily true. What are some of the red flags that women should be looking at to determine whether or not their situation really is abusive?
So I think some of the really big things that we don't really listen to our own guts. One of them is a change in behavior, our own change in behavior. Do we make ourselves feel smaller around this person, or are we in a spot where we can truly thrive? Like that we're a young seedling getting watered, or are we getting shadowed, right? That's a big one. Humiliation disguised as humor. They're
Mhm.
there to nitpick and kind of make fun of you. Oh, you have a crooked toe. Oh, you walk with your arm funny. Like little things that start out sounding like a joke, but they're not
Yeah.
designed to be a joke. It's designed to really cut you down. Constant, constant contact. They don't want to let you out of their sight. And in the beginning, right, you're caught up in this love cycle. It's the honeymoon phase. You want to be around each other so much. And it's that love bombing, the attention, the, oh my God, I feel amazing around this person. That can be a red flag or it may not be, right? You have to decide what's comfortable in your own gut with that. But I think a lot of that is almost an anxiety feeling versus excitement. And there is you have to listen to your gut in that. But in the grand scheme of things, when I went back and looked back with my therapist, those feelings were anxiety feelings. They
Mhm.
weren't excitement. And so understanding the difference between the two of those is a big one. Isolation, criticism that's that it's criticism that is actually described like concern. I feel like I need to protect you. So you shouldn't go to the gym at night when I'm not in town. I'm here
Mhm.
to protect you, right? Controlling behavior disguised as advice. I mean, the love bombing, the let's go to Paris, let's go to Italy, let's go here. And see, I do all these nice things for you. I love you.
Right, right. But
But
yet there's a lack of actual respect for who you are as
yeah,
you are. There's always this feeling like you need to be changed or do something different. Or as you said, minimize. Sometimes the minimizing is like keeping the peace basically. And I'm speaking not necessarily from experience, but I've had friends who have gone through the same thing. And the interesting thing is that some of them, not all, there were three of them I'm thinking about in particular, they were unwilling to see how their life had become traumatized. And one of the things that I know a lot of women don't necessarily have an understanding about because you don't hear this phrase that much, and that's trauma bonding. What is trauma bonding, and how do you begin to break free of that?
so trauma bonding, I like to describe it as a tornado,
Mm.
right? You see the destruction, you feel the destruction, but you can't pull away because of the gravitational pull towards it.
Wow, right.
Like it really is awful. There is a simple description is out of 30 days of a month, that abuser only has to really be nice to you one day of that month for you to get sucked in, right? It's the love bombing, it's the future faking. Oh, I see this future for us. This will be so amazing. Oh, if you don't like me, then just walk away. I may not be good for you. Just walk away. Like they give and they pull and kind of loop you into that feeling bad for them. They play a victim for their from their previous relationships. So they kind of suck you in and relate to you on a certain level and mirror you at a certain level. And then all of a sudden it's why haven't you posted me as your boyfriend on Facebook? Who are you screwing in your Facebook friends? Why are you staying longer at work? You need to call me the minute you leave work so I know exactly how long it takes you. I mean, it gets down to the minute, and I could give a bazillion examples,
Wow.
but it becomes this, you feel like you have to prove you're not doing something wrong. So you're
Right.
stuck in that loop. It's a broken record.
Yeah, and sometimes there's no way to prove it. I mean, if the trust is there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. I've learned
And
that.
how do you prove something that you're not doing? Like, that's impossible.
Well, sometimes on the other side of it, and this is what happened with one of my friends, is that she ended up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, basically. He kept accusing her of things and it was never happening. And then she met someone
Yeah.
who was totally opposite of that. And then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then there was no trust. And eventually, after many years, after the fair and everything else, eventually she did leave. But it was not after getting some help in terms of building her self confidence, feeling more empowered, and designing an escape. Hers was not the physical violence, but just designing an escape that could minimize the emotional abuse she was going to get as a result of leaving. Could you tell us a little bit about that? How women can escape this kind of a cycle?
Absolutely. I think it is you just brought up a really great point. The physical we can heal from, right? A broken bone heals, a black eye, heals, it goes away. The stuff that's happening on the inside, the psychological stuff, the emotional stuff, that stuff it lands in a different part of our brain. Like trauma brain is a real thing. Like you don't remember things in chronological order, there's a fog. So when you're dealing with that and trying to escape from that, one of the things that someone who's going through it, you need to start journaling. You need to start like writing things down because with a trauma brain, you're going to compartmentalize and not remember the bad. You're
Right.
just trying to move forward because your abuser's telling you to move forward. Stop living in the past. We're going forward. Like they're directing you to do certain things and you're just complying to keep the peace. Or those that surround the person going through the abuse, if if you know the victim and they're not keeping any type of journal or kind of timeline of what's happening, help them do that.
Yes.
Ask, how can I help you? I notice, instead of saying you need to leave, hey, I notice you're acting different. I'm here if you want to talk. A little more subtle so it doesn't become
Right.
dangerous for them.
Because sometimes in our concern of wanting to help them, they sometimes feel like that. And I'm just going from experience with my girlfriends. They feel like they're being backed in the corner and they withdraw even more so, or being judged or embarrassed because they found themselves in the situation. But there is a way to build their self-confidence. And I think one of the things that's interesting is the majority of our listeners are between the ages of 45 and 55. Although I noticed that the 60 is raising because I'm 68. So now I'm getting more 60 people in.
We're each having birthdays every year, right?
Exactly. We're already going through a stage in midlife where self-confidence is challenged, where our ability to feel empowered because our body is changing and we're thinking is our attractiveness changing, all these different changes and transitions. And now you have a situation where you really want to get out of, but you're not feeling empowered. You're not feeling confident already. So how do you get past all of that?
I think some of those things, and I agree with you, menopause is no joke on the body and the mind and the whole psyche, right? Um,
Exactly.
the 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 thing that I felt most useful is you write down some type of a plan. You write down one goal. Do not get overwhelmed because our brains can't handle it going through all the other things. Write down one goal and write the baby steps to get to that goal. So maybe at this time, if they're still in a situation, maybe that goal is I'm going to paint the guest bedroom. I mean, it can be something simple, not life changing, something that is not going to be recognized by their abuser if they're in it, right? Let's say that specific goal to paint the whole room. Today, I'm going to go pick up paint chips or go with him to pick up paint chips. Did I do that? Yes, that's a win. You're making tiny little promises to yourself that you can check off. So I
Mhm.
picked up paint chips with him. He's not, you can even tell him or her, I mean, whatever, whoever the abuser is, there's no religion, race, whatever that is going to supersede the other, that, hey, I want to paint the guest bedroom. They can be involved in your little goal. So let's go pick up paint chips. So you go pick up paint chips, check mark. You tape off the door, check mark. You tape off this, check mark. You paint one wall, check mark. You then paint. So it's a series of check marks. And as you see that, you're keeping your promise to yourself. That is the most important. No matter what the task is, it's you're setting a task, big or small. Start with small. That's the best way to build confidence and get that check mark, that win for that day. And you can do one a day. Do it small because we, especially with the craziness of our own brain and then the add in the chaos of the abusive relationship, whether it's physical, emotional, psychological, whatever is involved in that, the little wins will help you build that self-confidence.
Wow, that's interesting because, I believe, or I'm an advocate of habit stacking, doing one thing and then doing something else while you're doing that one thing. And I love the way you broke that down because you really can begin to plan your escape while doing some of those things with him
Yeah.
and not even know. In fact, he'll be helping you. But let's say you get to the actual day of when you're going to leave. What does that look like? Or what did that look like for you?
So it took some pre-planning. It took me 5 times for my final time. So there were multiple times that I left, and each time it's you get roped back in. Maybe your safety plan or your escape plan isn't ready yet, right? It took planning ahead of time. For some people, it can be as small as I know exactly whose house I'm going to go to. I'm going to sleep in their guest bedroom. I know that I will be protected there. I can bring my child, my animal, my whatever is traveling with you. I had my dog with me. Or you have enough money set aside that you can go stay at a hotel and you already know it's dog friendly. So whatever that looks like, if I need to go on a whim, that's where I can go. This is what steps I need to take. I have my keys in my purse. My purse is by the door. That I have a bag of dog food already in the car, whatever that looks like, all the way up to some more elaborate things. So if you have children that are in a school system, do you need to make sure is this person physically violent? Then you need to get to a physically safe place, whether it is a emergency shelter. That takes on some different planning if you have children or animals in that type of situation. But there may be people you need to call, like friends, family, to say, I'm gone. I need a place. He may be calling you. He may show up at your door and letting people know what all is happening. I started packing up my condo or his condo that I was living in. He made clear I was a visitor, that I was giving things away to Goodwill. So I was putting stuff in a suitcase, but I wasn't dropping it off at Goodwill. I was
Mhm.
dropping it off at a storage unit that he already knew I had, but he didn't know how often I was going there.
Mhm.
Also, and rather than removing things from the bathroom that he would notice was gone, my toothbrush, a scale, my face wash, my shampoo, all of those things, I started ordering from Amazon. And Amazon has those little boxes that you punch a code in and it pops open a door. And they're at 7-Elevens, Home Depot, Lowe's, sitting outside gas stations. So I started shipping things there, picking them up and dropping them off at the storage unit. So I was slowly and methodically putting it together. So when he walked in the room on that last day and he said, give me a BJ, and I said, no, he goes, well, then I'll find someone who will. I said, yes, you will. I'm out. I grabbed my dog, I grabbed a couple things, and I went to my car and I was out.
Wow. And I guess he was like, what? And then what happens afterwards? Did you go through the love bombing and everything else when you left after that? Or
I went to a hotel. He tried to get me back. He used his mother as an excuse that she went through a heat stroke, and that he needed my help because he couldn't do it by himself because his back was injured, blah, blah, blah. So I went there to help her, and she was nowhere to be found. She wasn't there. He was there cooking dinner for the two of us. And then when I was like, what is this? He's like, you should be on your knees begging to give me a blowjob, and you should be begging me to take you back. Where is my apology?
Wow. Well,
And
I
I'm
guess
like,
yeah, my goodness.
that was October 31st, 2018.
Wow. So
And
that's
one of the things that I did is I left because he lived in a condo complex that you had to go through guard gates to get in. And what I did when I pulled out of the complex, I stopped at the guard gate and I said, hey, I found a really expensive purse from someone that we had over at the condo last week because I wasn't there that week that I was asking about. I found a really expensive purse and I want to make sure we had some people over for dinner and I want to make sure I return it to the right person. Can you give me a list of people that were here last week? And I got a name and it wasn't me.
and it wasn't you. Wow.
And it,
Okay,
and it
great.
was a girl. He went onto Facebook on my account because he wanted all my passwords. He went into my Facebook and blocked her, so I never saw any updates. And she
Right.
couldn't see any updates on mine if she was stalking me.
Wow. Oh my
So
goodness.
multiple level diabolical, crazy insanity stuff.
And it's interesting because even after someone goes through that and they get skipped and everything else, there's still going to be some leftover residual feelings, I would imagine, the guilt and shame.
Well, the guilt and shame were there. The love was not, because at that point, he had punched me in my chest, spit on me, yanked my dog out of my hands. Like he had thrown me to the floor, he broke my phone. He literally took my phone and snapped it.
That's against the law, actually.
Shocking. I mean, half the stuff that he put a nanny cam in our bedroom so he could watch me when he was out of town and never told me about it, didn't get my permission.
Yeah. Just
And all kinds of things. So he skated the legal line all the time,
mm,
right? The the tough thing with all of it, the guilt and shame, absolutely. But the other side of it is there were a couple emails of, can we just talk about this? I will do this. I don't care about your Facebook. I don't care about this. I don't care about this.
all
That
of a sudden he's found religion, basically, huh? All of a sudden.
Oh my God.
Is
The level of I don't care about this. I just want you back. Walk by and see your toothbrush and I miss that I won't wake up next to you,
mm,
which at that point I had already been schooled. I copy and pasted that to my therapist and she was like, "Girl, that has nothing to do with you. That
mm.
is pure on manipulation. Don't listen to anything that he's saying. That is everything would go back to where it was or worse." So thankfully, I had her in my corner.
Right, exactly. It does help to have a community behind you, a
Yeah.
girlfriend, your therapist, whatever your support system is, which could be part of your plan. And I
Yeah.
have to tell you, Tiffany, I'm glad that you are okay. And the fact that you are now turning this into basically an advocacy for women. In fact, for all of you who are listening, Tiffany has a wonderful book that she's written called Behind the Smile that you can find at Amazon. And you can also find it at, I think you said book.
Barnes and Noble,
Yeah, Barnes and Noble.
Books a Million, Walmart.
Okay, great. All those different places. And what's that book about? What do you talk about in the book?
So this book, in the grand scheme of things, is a guide for loved ones that have someone going through a situation because everything I bought was monitored. So if I bought this book and he saw this book, he would throw it out. I
Mm,
wouldn't be allowed to read it. So I took that as how can I reach women and tell them some of the warning signs and ways to understand what's happening, but through their loved ones. So if a mom, a sister, a coworker, a best friend, whoever, if they know someone that's going through this, how can you safely approach so you don't get isolated in that relationship? And how can you become that safe space for when they are ready to leave? Because they're not going to be ready one
no,
off. They're
no.
not. Statistics say otherwise.
Yes, and I can say, okay, no problem. No, there's going to be some. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing such a powerful testimony and story. And I do know that people are going to be listening to this, and there's going to be someone out there that this is going to be their aha moment, that it's doable, that it's possible. For all of you who are listening, please go ahead and take a look at the show page. All of Tiffany's links of social media and her book, they're all here on the show page. Please take a look at that. Please go ahead and purchase this book. Maybe not for you, maybe there's someone else. I think we all know someone who is going through something. And sometimes when the book is about like how to help somebody else, but actually it's them, it could be used that way too, because sometimes it's really difficult for people to admit that they need help, but you know
Yeah.
that they did. So
And
please.
there's a checklist in the back that I
Mhm.
needed for my own sanity and the power and control wheel. So if you look at that, you can see, oh, does this apply to me? Yes, you're in
Right.
an abusive situation.
That's how you know. Tiffany,
Yep.
thank you so much for being on the V.I.B.E Living podcast. It's been great
Thank
having you here
you.
today.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of you who are listening to the podcast. I really appreciate the comments that I've gotten, and I see that people are liking and subscribing to the podcast. And let's just keep that going. We have well over, I've lost count now, 150 interviews here on the various platforms where we are. And all of them are designed to help you to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered, especially along this journey we call midlife. Thanks so much for making us in the top 5% globally of podcasts, and we're still growing. Let's keep the vibe going too. Thanks a lot for everything, everyone. And don't forget the vibe. Bye bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget the vibe. Bye bye, everybody.